In our headlines on this Monday, December 9th, here in South Korea. A parliamentary failure to impeach the president this past weekend is fueling greater conflict between ruling and opposition parties over the fate of national governments and leadership. And the Korean stock market loses more ground as foreign investors sell shares in response to the mounting political uncertainty on the local front that also continues to weaken the Korean won against major currencies. Meanwhile, a coalition of Syrian rebels bring to an end President Bashar al-Assad's government by capturing the capital Damascus this past weekend in a dramatic offensive that has been hailed by US President Joe Biden. The ruling People Power Party has launched a task force to seek stability as it ponders over a roadmap to ensure an early and orderly exit of the president from power. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Under heavy pressure from the public after boycotting the impeachment vote 2 days ago, the ruling People Power Party has decided to create a task force to handle practical affairs in dealing with what looks like a void in the nation's top office. On Monday, the PPP said this new task force will be in charge of 3 things: stabilizing the political situation, supporting the stabilization of the government, and supporting legislative processes.
Political stabilization involves addressing various measures to ensure stability following the declaration of martial law. This includes discussions on specific options, such as an orderly early resignation. There is also a need to assign responsibilities for the practical aspects of these measures.
Considering some PPP lawmakers' comments to the media so far, there are different opinions on Yoon's fate going forward among different factions within the party. Some say Yoon needs to resign, while others say amending the constitution to shorten the sitting president's term is better. All this also while the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea aims to keep on pushing for an impeachment, as the party has previously warned. Another pressuring factor for PPP lawmakers amid large protests, and it only takes 8 to defect. Since the PPP said boycotting the last impeachment vote was to seek a stable transition of power instead of an abrupt one, buying time could be one aspect to their decision. However, a resignation would leave the PPP with less time than an impeachment. Should Yoon resign, there will be a presidential election within 60 days. An impeachment process can take up to 6 months, considering the Constitutional Court's decision followed by the next presidential election. And amending the Constitution to shorten a president's term would likely be 4 years with the possibility of re-election, like the US Constitution, from the current 5, because the new amendment will also affect the next presidents going forward. That means Yoon will have more than a year left in office, something the majority of the public may not accept. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the opposition Democratic Party remains resolute in its intentions to impeach the president and to hold him accountable for his actions last week that saw a brief imposition of martial law here in South Korea, the first in over 40 years. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Since the failed impeachment vote on President Yoon Suk-yeol last weekend, tensions in the National Assembly have continued to rise. The main opposition Democratic Party is seeking once more to impeach President Yoon.
Political uncertainty greatly harms the country's credit rating. If President Yoon doesn't step down immediately, it could irreparably damage South Korea's national competitiveness, including its exchange rate, stock markets, and AI semiconductor industry.
DP Chairman Lee Jae-myung said earlier that another impeachment motion will be introduced this Saturday, exactly 1 week after the first one, calling it the only way to address the current situation. The party has also been pushing for the passage of special investigation bills. On Monday, it proposed a special counsel bill to investigate insurrection allegations against Yoon, aiming to pass it in Saturday's plenary session. This is separate from a special counsel bill the party submitted on Friday, which was reviewed by a subcommittee of the National Assembly Legislation and Judiciary Committee on Monday and approved. The bill calls for the appointment of a permanent special counsel to investigate charges of treason leveled at Yoon over his martial law declaration. The main opposition plans to put the bill up for a vote in Tuesday's plenary session. Unlike a regular special counsel investigation, the president cannot veto a bill for a permanent special counsel. Meanwhile, on Monday, the DP also proposed a bill to initiate a special prosecutor's investigation into allegations of corruption and election interference by First Lady Kim Gon-hee, with the aim of addressing this in Thursday's plenary session. This will be the fourth attempt at indicting Kim. The third attempt was rejected on Saturday after falling short by 2 votes. 신하영, Arirang News.
And both the prosecution and the police here have launched separate probes into President Yoon Suk-yeol, naming him a suspect on charges of treason. Our Kim Bo-kyung has details.
Investigations have begun over the declaration of martial law on December 3rd. The police have formed their own special investigation team and said 11 individuals, including President Yoon, are listed as suspects related to the declaration of martial law. The Korean National Police Agency's National Office of Investigation held a briefing on the matter on Monday morning.
There are no human or physical restrictions to the subject of an investigation. We will conduct a strict investigation based on law and principles.
The police are considering imposing a travel ban on President Yoon while they investigate him, with several key figures including former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun and former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min already placed under a travel ban. The police already have raided the official residence and office of former Defense Minister Kim and confiscated a cell phone and 17 other digital devices, including a laptop, on Sunday. Prosecutors, too, have launched an investigation and on Monday, along with military prosecutors, performed a search and seizure operation at the Defense Counterintelligence Command in Gwacheon, Gyeonggi-do Province. This comes after prosecutors also confirmed that President Yoon has been named as a suspect on charges of treason, saying the investigation would address both insurrection and abuse of power allegations.
The Special Investigation Headquarters handling the martial law case will do its best to ensure that no suspicions remain regarding this critical national incident.
The Special Prosecution Investigation Team has taken former Defense Minister Kim into custody at a detention facility in Eastern Seoul under emergency arrest provisions since Kim voluntarily appeared at the Seoul Central Prosecutor's Office early on Sunday. It is expected to file for a court warrant late Monday night. The team also questioned as witnesses Army Chief of Staff General Park Han-soo, who was the martial law commander, as well as former head of the Army's Special Warfare Command, Lieutenant General Kwak Jong-gun. Meanwhile, regarding the separate probes that the prosecution and police have launched, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials urged them to send a case to the CIO, citing concerns over an overlapping of jurisdiction, while saying it will undertake a strict investigation into this national incident regardless of rank or position. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Also, in related news, the commander of Korea's Special Forces says he had been ordered to block lawmakers from access to the National Assembly on the night of martial law. Addressing members of the media on this Monday, Colonel Kim Hyun-tae, commander of the 707 Special Task Force, revealed that he had been told to drag lawmakers out of the Parliament building to ensure that their number did not surpass 150. Calling himself an incompetent commander, he apologized for ordering his soldiers to storm the Parliament, adding that he had put his troops in danger and that they were the most tragic victims. He also said that he had been acting under the command of former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun. Separately, amid the political turmoil over governance, the Defense Ministry here earlier today confirmed that under the country's law, President Yoon Suk-yeol remains the commander-in-chief. The ripple effects of Korea's 6-hour martial law continue to be felt in its stock market as both foreign and local investors choose to unload their shares while the Korean won continues to weaken against major currencies. Our An Sung-jin reports.
South Korea's stock markets are continuing to tumble amid economic concerns following the temporary declaration of martial law. Both representative market indexes fell for a fourth consecutive day. The benchmark Kospi closed at 2,360, 2.78% down, marking its lowest level since November 2023. The tech-heavy Kosdaq closed at 627, a 5.19% drop from the previous trading day, which is its lowest for the entire year. It's also the first time since April 2020 for the Kosdaq to tumble below the 630 level. Not only have foreign investors been net sellers, but so too have domestic individuals. The $1 exchange rate in this whole foreign exchange market closed at 1,437, the highest in 25 months. Funds have been rapidly flowing out of the financial market since a brief imposition of martial law, and forecasts suggest that the exchange rate may head up to 1,500 won to the greenback. As concerns mount due to the domestic political crisis and President-elect Trump's worrisome policies, markets have been having a difficult time bouncing back. During an emergency meeting on Monday, Finance Minister Treason, along with top economic officials, agreed to provide unlimited liquidity until the stock, bond, and short-term markets are fully normalized. The government has pledged that all market stabilization measures can be immediately implemented based on a prepared contingency plan to prevent excessive market volatility. Already, 30 billion Korean won, or $20 million from the value-up fund has been injected to stabilize supply and demand on the stock markets, and 70 billion won will be deployed throughout this week. An additional 30 billion won will be injected again next week. The meeting also emphasized a pan-governmental real-time monitoring system through a task force to closely observe financial market conditions. The government aims to maintain its external credit rating by dispatching international financial cooperation ambassadors and sending letters in the name of the Deputy Prime Minister to foreign investors and finance ministers of other countries to reaffirm communication. With the country's political prospects remaining unresolved, the government's measures are aimed at gradually regaining stability. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And a state-run think tank asserts there has been little improvement in economic prospects amid mounting risk factors abroad and now even at home, our Park Gun-woo reports.
Another dim monthly assessment for the Korean economy in December. The monthly economics trends report released by state-run think tank the Korea Development Institute on Monday says both internal and external uncertainties affecting the country's economy are escalating with little sign of improvement for domestic demand. Such grim assessments for the country were first made last December. The KDI said sluggish performance in the construction industry is one of the biggest contributing factors. Output in the construction sector saw another on-year drop by nearly 10% in October after it dropped nearly 13% in September. That's compared to the overall industry output seeing an on-year rise of over 2% in October, driven by growth in production in the mining and service industries. The think tank also said low investment in the construction field and weakened retail consumption are particularly restraining domestic demand. Uncertainties in trade conditions were also another factor, despite Korea continuously seeing robust exports of chips and solid production of semiconductors. Exports in November rose 1.4% on year, with shipments for ICT products mainly driving the increase. While that's a smaller increase than the previous months, the institute explained that was due to temporary factors such as bad weather in November. However, the KDI warned that Donald Trump's win in the U.S. presidential race, along with his expected protectionist policies, could worsen trade conditions in the near future. While one expert agrees, he also spoke about uncertainties stemming from the political scandal related to President Yoon that weren't reflected in the assessment.
If the current political problems continue and current uncertainty continues about the Korea's near future economy, then that slight recovery may dampen down and we will go back to low investment, low consumption state again. If we had gone on with impeachment, I think the negative consequences would have been less.
But while mentioning the Korean stock market and Korean won did worsen, he added it could have been worse. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In other news, Syria's Bashar al-Assad is reportedly in Russia following a dramatic siege of the capital Damascus this past Sunday by rebel forces. Our Lee Sing-jae has the latest.
Syria's ousted leader Bashar al-Assad and his family have arrived in Russia after being granted asylum by Moscow. According to Russia's Interfax news agency on Sunday, al-Assad arrived in Moscow, where the former Syrian leader and his family were given asylum on humanitarian grounds. The Russian Foreign Ministry also issued a statement saying that al-Assad decided to leave the presidential post and left the country, while giving instructions to transfer power peacefully. The al-Assad family's reign in Syria came to an end after 53 years on Sunday, after rebel forces captured Damascus. The rebel forces stormed through Syria in a matter of days, with the senior commander of the militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham declaring the Syrian capital free from the tyrant. U.S. President Joe Biden on Sunday called the fall of the al-Assad regime a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria. Biden said that the ousting of its former leader meant an opportunity for the country to build a better future. The U.S. president vowed to continue engaging with all groups in Syria to help transition away from the former regime towards an independent and sovereign nation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also praised the fall of the al-Assad regime, while suggesting that it was a direct result of Israeli attacks on Iran and Hezbollah. Netanyahu added that with the fall of the Syrian government, the Israeli military had to take positions abandoned by the Syrian army near the border with Israel. Syrians took to the streets across the country to celebrate the fall of the al-Assad regime. Over in the capital, people gave a warm welcome to the rebel fighters who led the ousting of the former leader. The celebratory mood was also evident among the many Syrians who left their country since the civil war. And for many, it's an opportunity for them to return home. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will absolutely consider withdrawing his country from NATO if Europe does not shoulder its share of the bill. In an interview with NBC News that aired on Sunday, Trump claimed that European nations have taken advantage of the U.S. on trade, but that the U.S. continues to defend them. During his previous term in office, Trump pressed his European counterparts to bolster their security spending, demanding at least 3% of their respective GDPs to be allocated to defense. Author Han Kang hosted a short session to share her journey into writing with an audience in the Swedish capital city this past weekend, ahead of the Nobel Prize award ceremony tomorrow, that is Tuesday. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin was there.
After nearly 2 months of keeping a low profile following her Nobel Prize win, Korean author Han Kang has embraced the spotlight at Nobel Week.
This award is given to the literature. And this year I was awarded. This is my conclusion, and this makes me more comfortable.
Now feeling more at ease with her Nobel laureate title, the 54-year-old author shared her journey of uncovering the overarching theme of her work during her Nobel lecture, Light and Thread.
세계는 왜 이토록 폭력적이고 고통스러운가? 동시에 세계는 어떻게 이렇게 아름다운가? 이 두 질문 사이의 긴장과 내적 투쟁이 나의 글쓰기를 밀고 온 동력이었다고 오랫동안 믿어왔습니다.
These questions were etched in her mind at age 12 after seeing photographs of civilians killed during the Gwangju democratization movement. Decades later, while writing her 2014 novel Human Acts, which delves into the tragedy, she discovered that love, not those questions, was at the heart of her storytelling.
우리는 인간성을 믿고자 하기에 그 믿음이 흔들릴 때 자신이 파괴되는 것을 느끼는 것일까? 우리는 인간을 사랑하고자 하기에 그 사랑이 부서질 때 고통을 느끼는 것일까? 사랑에서 고통이 생겨나고 어떤 고통은 사랑의 증거인 것일까?
This connection to love, however, had always been with her. At 8 years old, Han wrote a poem that read, "Where is love? It is inside my thumb-thumping, beating chest. What is love? It is the gold thread connecting between our hearts." Now, she sees writing itself as an act of that love.
소설을 쓸 때 나는 신체를 사용합니다. 심장이 뛰고 갈증과 허기를 느끼고 걷고 달리고 바람과 눈비를 맞고 손을 맞잡는 모든 감각의 세부들을 사용합니다. 그 생생한 감각들을 전류처럼 문장들에 불어넣으려 하고 그 전류가 읽는 사람들에게 전달되는 것을 느낄 때면 놀라고 감동합니다. 언어가 우리를 잇는 실이라는 것을.
Han concluded her 30-minute lecture by thanking her readers.
So with two major events in her Nobel Week itinerary completed, up next for the Nobel laureate in literature is attending the Nobel Prize ceremony and banquet on Tuesday, December 10th. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. An explosion and fire in an apartment block in The Hague has killed at least 3 people. Local authorities say the incident on Saturday morning also left several injured. The Hague Mayor John van Zanen said in a press conference that investigators are considering all possibilities, though the exact cause of explosion remains unclear. Emergency responders are continuing to search for missing persons in the debris of the collapsed building, but the chances of finding survivors appear slim. Authorities have not disclosed how many individuals remain unaccounted for. The apartment building is located in a residential area not far from the city center. Nearby residents reported hearing a loud explosion followed by screams early on Saturday morning. Pope Francis has called on U.S. authorities to commute the sentences of death row inmates. The appeal was made during the Pope's weekly Sunday prayer at St. Peter's Square, as he asked for prayers for death row prisoners and for their death sentences to be commuted or changed. Pope Francis, a longtime opponent of capital punishment, has consistently advocated against the practice, even urging the Catholic Church to update its teaching in 2018. It is unusual for the Pope to mention specific countries when addressing the issue, making Sunday's remarks notable. According to the nonprofit Death Penalty Information Center, there are approximately 2,250 death row inmates across the United States, including about 40 held in federal custody. Some U.S. Catholic organizations have also called on President Joe Biden to commute federal sentences before his term ends. 5 years after a catastrophic fire devastated Paris' Notre Dame Cathedral, the iconic landmark reopened on Saturday with a commemorative event honoring emergency responders who played a critical role in saving the 860-year-old building from collapse. A total of 160 firefighters dressed in vivid red uniforms received a standing ovation from attendees. Outside the cathedral, the word Mercy was projected onto its walls in a heartfelt tribute to their heroic efforts. The event also saw the attendance of prominent international figures, including U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. French President Emmanuel Macron praised the swift restoration work, calling it an achievement of the impossible, and expressed gratitude to everyone involved in saving and rebuilding the cathedral. The cathedral caught fire on April 15, 2019, but restoration was possible thanks to the efforts of firefighters. The red ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz have been sold at auction. The iconic shoes were sold in an online auction on Saturday, U.S. local time, for $28 million. In 2005, the shoes were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in her hometown of Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and were only recovered in 2018 after an FBI investigation. Collector Michael Shaw, who had loaned the shoes to the museum, regained possession of them this February and put them up for auction. They are one of 4 surviving pairs of slippers that Garland wore while portraying Dorothy and are considered among the most iconic props in American cinematic history. 윤세영, Arirang News.
Today, typical early winter weather continues throughout the day. This week, highs will stay at around 10 degrees Celsius nationwide. Meanwhile, humidity levels are low in eastern regions, especially towards the coast. Looking at today's special weather report, dry weather advisories have been issued for the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and the east coast areas of Gyeongsang-do provinces. In some areas of eastern Gangwon-do province, the dryness is intensifying with dry weather warnings in place. The wind is also somewhat strong, so even a small fire is likely to spread quickly. Be careful not to start a wildfire. Tomorrow, Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeongju will start off at -1 degree, Gwangju 2 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 10 degrees in Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju, Busan 11 degrees. Rain and snow are expected for the east coast in the middle of the week and around the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island in the second half. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us and thank you for now.